its impact on education have been considerable. It has been estimated that the widespread closure of educational institutions across the region has impacted over 150 million children and youth in ASEAN. The annual convening of this event since 2018, even midst of this ongoing COVID-19, demonstrates the strong commitment of both ASEAN and the EU to strengthen our cooperation in education. The EU has been ASEAN's partner for 43 years. Over these past four decades, we have been steadfastly working together to fully realize an inclusive, sustainable, resilient, and dynamic ASEAN community. One of the core areas of our collaboration with the European Union is building the capacity of ASEAN's higher education sector through inter-regional and ASEAN-EU students' mobility. These strong partnerships in education is perhaps most visible in the implementation of the EU support to higher education in the ASEAN region's programs, or SHARE. Since 2015, SHARE has been helping promote inter-regionalizations and regional cooperation in ASEAN higher education. Its accomplishments have been considerable, such as providing more than 500 scholarships for intra-ASEAN and ASEAN-EU students' mobility, convening 11 regional policy dialogues that were attended by stakeholders from the region and beyond, conducting 13 capacity building workshops and training for education personnel, and piloting an inter-regional students' mobility scheme supported with scholarships and a comprehensive credit transfer system. Amidst these achievements, however, much remains to be done if we are to realize common higher education space for ASEAN. We therefore look forward to working with the EU to carry out a long-term extension of SHARE through the leaderships of ASEAN senior officials meeting on education. Ladies and gentlemen, I encourage the students who are virtually present here today to explore the valuable opportunities to further your studies. You, the youth of ASEAN, are at the heart not only for the post-pandemic recovery of the region, but more importantly in your efforts to build back better and become more resilient. With that, please allow me reiterate my profound thanks to European Union for being a long-standing partners of ASEAN and our member states in the continued development of our region. I also wish to express my appreciation to the members of states of both ASEAN and the EU for joining us today to showcase their scholarships program. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, for our next program is the opening remarks by Her Excellency, the Permanent Representative of the Republic of Singapore to ASEAN, Mrs. Kok Lee Peng. Her Excellency, Mrs. Kok Lee Peng, the time is yours.
Third ASEAN-EU Cooperation and Scholarships Day 2020. Thank you, Datuk Lim Jock Hoi, our ASEAN Secretary General, for gracing our event. Thank you also to Ambassador Igor Driesmans and your team for your tireless efforts in bringing us together today. Although we are in the midst of a pandemic, we have still managed to find a way to work around this and hold this important event virtually. The ties between ASEAN and EU are broad and multifaceted. We are heartened to see that the EU is cooperating with ASEAN across all three pillars of the ASEAN community. Today we celebrate the enduring people-to-people ties between our regions. Despite the pandemic, we have found ways to continue cooperation and building on relations. I am glad that we are focusing on education opportunities for ASEAN nationals. UNICEF has estimated that up to 1 billion children will have their education affected by COVID. UNESCO estimates that 60% of students everywhere will be impacted by school closures. Anecdotally, students at all levels must contemplate disruptions or major changes in their pursuit of knowledge. So, I would like to express heartfelt appreciation to the EU for continuing to work with ASEAN on development and scholarships. Numerous students from ASEAN study in the EU each year thanks to programs such as Erasmus+. Since 2014, more than 5,500 students and staff from ASEAN universities have received EU scholarships. Conversely, nearly 3,000 European students and staff have taken up work or study in ASEAN under this program. There is also the EU Share, a program which supports higher education in the ASEAN region. These exchanges are important for the youth to learn more from each other about cultures, countries, and religions. Our youth can also take heart that ASEAN has in place arrangements for labor mobility in many fields, such as architecture, accounting, dentistry, engineering, medicine, and nursing. I hope that our youth will be inspired by the heroism of our frontliners in the fight against COVID-19 to consider careers in the healthcare industry. I look forward to seeing our ASEAN-EU relationship grow even stronger in the coming years, building upon the friendships between our peoples and the new friendships between our youth. I wish you all the very best in your 2 days of deliberations. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now, please allow me to welcome His Excellency, the Ambassador of European Union to ASEAN, Mr. Igor Drismans, for his opening remarks and the official opening of the 3rd ASEAN-European Union Cooperation and Scholarship Day 2020. Your Excellency, Mr. Drismans, the time is yours.
Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Okay.
His Excellency Dato Lim Jock Hoi, Secretary General of ASEAN, Her Excellency Kok Lee Peng, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Singapore and Country Coordinator for the European Union, ambassadors, representatives of the media, visitors and students. I'm very glad to be here today to welcome you all to our 3rd Cooperation and Scholarship Days. Let me start by wishing you all, albeit somewhat belated, ASEAN Day. Last Saturday marked the 53rd anniversary of the foundation of ASEAN. We also marked, I might add, the 5th anniversary of the establishment of the ASEAN, the European Union mission to ASEAN, which I'm very honored to head. ASEAN Day is always a moment to mark the many achievements and successes of ASEAN and to reflect upon the future. It is also for us as European Union a moment to celebrate our long-standing relationship with ASEAN, a relationship which has steadily expanded and strengthened over more than 40 years, as the Secretary General was mentioning. Today, we will host an event which I think exemplifies very well this strong and very deep relationship between the European Union and ASEAN, as we have the third session of the Cooperation and Scholarship Days. After two very successful events hosted at the ASEAN Secretariat last year and the year before, this year we are going virtual. Even though we will not be able to share the same interactions as we normally do, I'm very happy that we were able to reach all of you today, and maybe even more than we are normally doing. The Secretary General and Ambassador Li Peng mentioned how the coronavirus has impacted our economies, our societies, and the daily lives of many of you. For the European Union, instead of turning inwards or playing blame game, we have chosen the path of international cooperation to tackle this pandemic, because we know very well that no one will be safe from the virus until everybody's safe, until the whole world is safe. This is why the European Union and the member states, in a collective Team Europe effort, have mobilized over 800 million to assist ASEAN and its member states to address the health crisis, to redress the health systems in the countries, but also to tackle the economic and social consequences of the pandemic. This package of support is the latest example of a very strong EU-ASEAN development cooperation, which we have developed over the years. Since 2014, the EU has funded regional integration programs in ASEAN with over 250 million euro. This comes in addition to over 2 billion euros in support to individual ASEAN member states. And I'm very happy to announce today that we are launching another 3 projects this year. The first one is the Smart Green Cities program of 5 million euro, which will promote sustainable urbanization in several ASEAN cities and promote exchanges in smart solutions within ASEAN and with the European Union. Secondly, the ASEAN Forest Governance Support Program of 5 million euro, which will support sustainable forest governance and management across the region and work on processes for sustainable timber licensing and trade in ASEAN member states. Thirdly, the ASEAN Supreme Audit Institutions Program of 3 million euro, which will enhance exchange and capacity building for supreme audit institutions in the region and increase harmonization and transparency. And with this, we are again expanding our cooperation with ASEAN in times of global pandemic, despite the many challenges that we are all facing. And as we have many young people amongst us today, let me just say that I think we all agree that getting talented students and researchers to move and work between our 2 regions is great for the students and the researchers involved as they gain new experiences. But it's also a very beneficial movement for the societies at large, for our economies, as experiences circulate, as new innovative ideas circulate. That's at least what the European Union experience has been, being a big supporter of internal student mobility. And we are therefore very happy to work with ASEAN on internal student mobility, as the Secretary General and Ambassador Li Peng have emphasized. Focusing specifically on intra-ASEAN mobility, we have supported the EU support to higher education in the ASEAN region. It's a mouthful, but the abbreviation might be known to you, the EU Share Program, which has provided scholarships for higher education and worked with ASEAN member states to make it easier to study in another ASEAN country. For instance, by working on a system that allows the transfer of credits from one university to another. And our hope is that with combined efforts, we will see the establishment of an ASEAN scholarship. Erasmus Plus is another program that supports students and researchers to travel and work in Europe. Since 2014, the EU has awarded over 5,500 scholarships to ASEAN students and university staff, with more than 3,000 European students and staff, which have taken up study in ASEAN countries during that same period. The current pandemic has limited our possibilities to travel. This also affects those who are studying abroad, who are planning to. But as you can see, the EU is continuing its support to mobility in higher education, and I was happy to see that this year over 200 students from ASEAN will receive an Erasmus Mundus scholarship. It's wonderful to see that young people from ASEAN remain very highly interested in studying in Europe. I think you have a critical role to play, not just in the future, but also in the present of our societies, and to strengthen people-to-people connectivity. So let me thank you all for joining us today and tomorrow. Special thank you to all the exhibitors from the EU and ASEAN for your support in the preparation and your presence in the webinars and booths. And thank you to all participants. I hope you will find this useful information on EU-ASEAN cooperation or on the different scholarships that are being provided. With this, let me officially open the third session of Cooperation and Scholarship Days EU-ASEAN, and thank you very much.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the third ASEAN European Union Cooperation and Scholarship Day 2020 is now officially open. And quoting from their excellencies, the European Union and Association of Southeast Asian Nations are natural partners with a history of cooperation across a range of sectors that spans more than 4 decades. Let's take part of the expansion of the cooperation between EU and ASEAN by taking the maximum benefit from this event. Please note that this event showcases the joint work of European Union and ASEAN to advance people-centered connectivity through cooperation projects and also scholarship opportunities. About the scholarship, EU and ASEAN member states will provide information, especially regarding the new methods of remote learning and student mobility, on all sorts of scholarships opportunities ranging from undergraduate to graduate and doctoral programs. Please feel free to get connected and get engaged with many delegates and institutions for your future benefit. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this may conclude the opening ceremony of the third ASEAN EU Cooperation and Scholarship Day 2020, and all media are invited to click the press conference button to enter the press conference page, and all participants are invited to click the webinar button to participate in the scheduled webinars or exploring the booths by clicking the button of Scholarship Fair. I would like to thank you, and I wish you a very great day and enjoy this virtual event. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon again and welcome to the press conference of the 3rd ASEAN European Union Cooperation and Scholarships Day 2020. I'm Edvi Gracia Ardani and I'm very honored today to becoming the moderator of this press conference. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me first to introduce His Excellency Mr. Igor Drismans, the Ambassador of European Union to ASEAN. Your Excellency, I would like to give the time to you to explain a little bit about the event, the intention, and most probably the objectives of the event that European Union and ASEAN would like to achieve. Your Excellency, the time is yours. Kok nggak kedengeran?
I'm sorry. I was on mute. Apologies. I was asking if you could just put on the PowerPoint for the journalist, which we have provided.
Of course. PowerPoint-nya?
Thank you very much. So I thought I'd give you just some background about our cooperation, the new programs that I'm happy to announce today, and indeed maybe let me start with our response to the coronavirus and regarding the support that we have been giving to ASEAN and to its member states in this respect, because I think that is of interest to you, members of the media, and to a wider public at large. So we have, since the start of the pandemic in March, mobilized over 800 million euro in financial support to ASEAN. I think that is unmatched by any other partner globally. And we have done so because we believe in international cooperation. We don't believe in isolation. We believe in partnership, in long-term structural support to the health systems and to the economic recovery of our partners, because we believe that is also in the interest of the European Union. Now, you might not be able to see as well the slide, so let me just give you a few examples of the support that we have been giving around the region. In Myanmar, for example, we financed the garment workers who lost their job due to COVID-19, up to 30,000 people already, and we will continue that program until November 2020. Here in Indonesia, we decided to finance 3 regional hospitals in East Java, in North Sulawesi, and in South Sulawesi. In the Philippines, we have provided technical assistance to the Department of Health. Again, in Cambodia, we have provided social protection. So really an engagement across the board, both in terms of responding to the health emergency, to support the longer-term social protection, as well as the economic recovery. Could you show the next slide, please?
Next slide.
Thank you very much. Maybe a word about the broader support that we give to ASEAN. You see here the number of projects across the 3 pillars of ASEAN. The political and security pillar of ASEAN, the economic pillar, and the socio-cultural pillar. 2 of the projects that have actually been launched earlier this year, sustainable use of peatlands and the support to the emergency response provided by the AHA Center. This makes us the biggest development partner of ASEAN, and I think it's fair to say that never before we as European Union have had such a broad and intense cooperation across these three pillars. Now, if you can show the next slide.
Next slide.
Thank you. You see here the three new projects which I briefly mentioned in my opening remarks to the ASEAN Forest Governance Support Program, the Smart Green ASEAN Cities, and the ASEAN Supreme Audit Institutions. And let me say a few more words about those three. If you can show me the next slide.
Next slide, yeah.
So the Smart Green ASEAN Cities initiative aims at supporting smart and green city solutions, strengthening also the national capacity for smart and green city development, as well as an exchange of smart and environmentally city management practices, both within ASEAN as well as with the European Union. The second program is indeed the ASEAN Forest Governance Support Program, which at a regional level will support dialogue, coordination and exchange between ASEAN member states and between ASEAN and trade partners, ASEAN's trade partners in the forestry sector, as well as at the national and say subnational level. It will enhance forest governance and management frameworks for sustainable landscape. The third and indeed very important program is the one supporting the ASEAN Supreme Audit Institutions, whereby we basically support those institutions to implement international audit standards. We support the capacity of the ASEAN audit institutions here, hosted by the Audit Board of Indonesia, based in Jakarta. And finally, the strengthening of regional cooperation and awareness on best practices. So these are three new programs that will be launched in the course of 2020. And I think it's important to stress that this is happening in times of, say, financial constraints for everybody, also for the European Union. And in the last couple of months, I was regularly asked whether the European Union would continue its financial support to ASEAN, given the many priorities that we have in different other domains and the pressure there is in budgetary terms within the European Union and within the European Union member states. I think it's an important signal that we send today that, on the contrary, we want to enlarge and expand our support to ASEAN despite these financial difficulties. If I can have the next slide, please. Thank you. So maybe a word of about our engagement in higher education, which is the other leg, very important during these 2 days of cooperation and scholarship. It's our support to the higher education in the ASEAN region through the EU Share program, which is about mutual recognition of qualifications. It's about improving quality assurance. It's about enhancing regional credit transfer systems between universities and strengthening institutional capacity of both countries and indeed at the ASEAN level. So it will, we think, in the long term, support the harmonization of higher education in ASEAN, and by doing so, the regional mobility between universities. So, and that's indeed what we have seen happen over the last couple of years. If I can have the next slide. Now, it's always good to see some numbers of the actual student exchange and the number of students that actually benefit from the SHARE program. You see here that actually 8 countries have benefited from 32 universities in 8 countries have benefited from the EU SHARE program. You can see there's currently no mentioning in Singapore and Brunei, but we hope that also they will come on board and that they will take part in that student exchange. You can see notably Myanmar, but also Malaysia and Indonesia having benefited greatly through these scholarship, in total 489 intra-ASEAN scholarships. The following slide, please. It's the last one I wanted to show to you today, because it's the new figures which have just arrived for Erasmus Mundus scholarship winners 2020. So you will see 2,452 scholarships worldwide, 205 of them for ASEAN students who will travel to Europe as of September or October 2020, COVID-19 permitting. And you can see also here the figures. The biggest winner is the Philippines, with 66 Filipino students who will travel to Europe with an Erasmus Mundus scholarship. Second in line is Indonesia with 61 scholarships. So this shows you that the student mobility for us and those different programs that we have, both be it EU Share or Erasmus Mundus, are thriving. That both intra-ASEAN mobility and mobility with Europe is working despite COVID-19, and we hope to continue to build on that for the future. And the cooperation and scholarship days that we have organized today and tomorrow virtually will allow students to connect with the different possibilities that are offered both under EU Share and under Erasmus+, but also under the individual scholarship programs provided by different member states. And indeed, a different, very good opportunity for them, we think. I think as an introduction for the press conference, I will stop here, and I'm ready to take any question that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Excellency, for the presentation. This is quite challenging for ASEAN countries and also European Union countries, I guess. You have new projects in 2020.